Hey guys, so in a prior video here I talked about the hands I played here this last weekend. I had a pretty good weekend with only moderate volume, so when I was going through it I flagged a bunch of 10NL hands here for review. There's a lot of spots I wanted to look at here, so I'm probably going to split this into two videos, but without further ado here, let's get started. So here we are in hijack pocket nines. It's folded to us. We're going to make a standard open. Great. I always look to my left just to see with nines I'm opening, but I do look here to see 0% 3-bet, 0% 3-bet. So there's not really a fear of getting 3-bet there too much. Call behind from cutoff, and we see a flop. So cutoff here is only 27 hands. He's a 44 player. Going to have a lot of junk that does not make this board, a lot of high cards, so definitely want to fire a continuation bet here of about a third pot, which we do, and he calls. All right. Now a 4. So where does that help him? So when he calls the flop bet, he has a lot of he can have some heart flushes. He could really have an ace high heart flush. He could have something like an 8-5. There's an open and a straight draw and got there, but I don't know that he's that loose. He could have had something like a 4-3 with a gut shot. It's most likely he's either hit a 6, a 7, or as hearts at that point, or he could also have like an 8. You're blocking 8-9 pretty hard. It's hard to put him on that. It definitely either has a small one pair hand or a draw. So I agree there. Continue firing. Again, a little bit more than a third pot bet. I like that. You want to bet small because you want to continue to get called by 6s, 7s, and the one pair of hands. I like this so far. All right, he calls. Now, the jack on the river might look like a scare card for us, but think of what jack combinations does he have. So if it was just happened to be ace jack of hearts, there's a possibility that might have 3-bet pre-flop. You don't know that player profile. It doesn't look like he's playing any aggression, but you don't know in 27 hands. He certainly could have hit that, probably if he had the jack of hearts, but he's not going to play jack 7, jack 6, something like that. So again, I think you can go from value here. If you get raised, you might be in a tough spot though, but I think you got to fire a third barrel here. Probably again want to go maybe a little bit bigger just to try to scare him off of maybe $1.20, something like that, a little bit more than half pot, a little more. All right, $1.40, so I agree with that. And he calls behind. Okay, so pocket queen. So when we went through this is not a hand we expected him to have. When you only have 27 hands on a player, it is hard to tell exactly what they're doing. He did not 3-bet queen queen. He flatted that. Have I added that to my notes here? Flatted queen queen in position. So I added that from this hand. I don't know that there's a whole lot we can do about this. I don't know that I played this differently at all. From the villain standpoint, it's a pretty bad plan on his part because he could have certainly tried to done something, at least in the river, if nothing else, to get additional value. So with his big hands, he's not playing this aggressively, and now we know that. Not a lot I think we can do differently here, though. Here's our own set of queens, this time in the small blind. So we get a fold, a limp, a raise to 30. So it's a real loose player. He's playing 54-18, only 28 hands, but he's playing a whole lot of cards. This guy here is at 27-18. He's not limping a whole lot. This is a pretty easy 3-bet scenario for me. When these guys are raising like this, especially if they're real wide and they're not raising, they're raising to something less than 4x, it's not a huge indication to me of value. Because you have the big blind still to act, you have the initial raiser still to act. Definitely want to raise and try to get some money here. So I'm probably going 4 times his bet is $1.20. Plus I probably throw 10 on for the cutoff limp. So I'd probably do about $1.30 here. All right, $1.40. Sometimes I don't even mind going a little bit bigger because one, guys will call you fairly inelastically. 2 is you just want to, if they're not going to, if they're going to call with worse hands, you want them to call the maximum value. And if you want them to fold, you want to give them a little bit extra encouragement to do it because guys call too wide here. So we do get a fold from the big blind, one for the hijack. It comes around the button, who calls. So now he's small raise, call, large 3-bet. So he probably has something here. So king 8-8 board. So one thing I'll note here is he's folded to a continuation bet. All right, This is where you got to click in. It's 100% of the time, but it's one of one opportunity, so that's not telling you a whole lot. What does he flat a 3-bet with? So possibly ace king. A lot of medium pairs. He's not going to do that with aces or kings, I don't think. He might do it with like a jacks, a tens, a nines that you beat. He does probably have, there'll be 12 combos of ace king left. He probably has all 12 of those. He has 6 combos of jacks, 6 of tens, 6 of nines, for example. That's 18. So right there, he's got 60% hands you beat to 40% hands you're behind to. Probably just with a 1 high card board, it's a good thing to fire to c-bet, particularly in a 3-bet pot, just because guys don't call down correctly in those. So again, I probably like $1, $1.10, about a third of the pot. $1.03, weird number, but I like it. And he min raises to 206. So we can click in here and see what his flop play is like. For 28 hands, is not going to give you any good information. So question here is, does he ever have something worse than a king? We don't know this guy. He's playing so many hands that it's hard to concentrate him just the nuts when he calls this. I think here, you need 14% equity to continue. The only real scare card for you is going to be, another. It's going to be an ace. Another king. He boats up, but that cuts down the number of king combinations he has. Is actually good in a way. He probably doesn't have a lot of eights. I don't know what he raises and calls with an 8, unless it's pocket eights and he happen to hit quads. I think given the pot odds, you have to call here, but kind of check down and proceed cautiously. And I put him all in there. Okay. All right. So the one thing I didn't see is he's only got $1.63 left. He doesn't even have much at all behind. I don't know that I love it, just because I think when he calls, he's going to have a lot of hands that beats us. But it's also one of the things that was not a great board for him. I probably don't like that, but I think it's the same result as calling. He's going to probably jam most turns, and you're going to have to call off based on pot odds anyway. So I don't think it hurts us. I also don't think I like that play. Which he calls a 4, a 5, and I'm guessing he has a king. Ace king, yep. So it's one of the hands we put him on to call the 3-bet. So it's one of the situations where just he's raising so small and the stacks are so tight that it's hard to kind of get away from. The important thing here is we ranged him correctly. We got to recognize his. Do we have a note here? So let's take a note here. So flop, min raise, top pair, top kicker, in position. It's hard with his stack size to get away from it, because even if he had just shoved all in on the flop, you can make a kind of a fold there, a tight fold, but I think just based on the odds, you continue to call down. Jacks in the small blind. All right, so this is looking, before we see what happens, looking to be a pretty good squeeze spot. So this guy here is real loose. I mean, he's opening 25% of hands. What is he doing from cutoff here? Cutoff, he's opening 27% of hands. So he's playing a lot of hands from there between this and a fairly wide collar. He's VPI being 33%. It's a pretty good squeeze spot to me. You want to go pretty big here, probably about $1.50. I think it's the only way you're going to get folds. All right, good. A fold from the big blind, a call from the cutoff, and a fold from the button. So king 7-4. So almost like the last hand. You're not blocking spades, so he has all those combos. He could certainly call a 3-bet with ace king, probably some king queen suited if nothing else. I think I know what player this is, and he's a pretty aggressive one. He hasn't 4-bet yet. How many opportunities? 14 opportunities. So he's definitely a call 3-bet, not a 4-bet guy. So that means he probably has the aces. All the combos of ace king in his range, so he could have hit that pretty well. Still, this is something that favors the 3-betters range, because I have the aces, I have the kings, I have all the ace king. So I think again it's the c-bet spot, probably about $1.10, third pot, $1.16, love it. He calls, all right. So now that he calls, it probably narrows him down to a king or potential spade draw. So if you fire again, the kings are going to keep calling down. If he has king queen, you really put a lot of pressure on him. You can make it look like ace king. Maybe he folds it, but really at this level, these guys aren't folding these hands. So I don't know if I check here if he bets behind. I don't know this player that well. What it would probably do is just fire a second barrel here, probably about $2, and see how he responds. 230. All right, probably could have gone a little smaller and gotten a similar result. Guys also don't call correctly against these small bets. So let's see what happens. And now he raises you. I mean, the 6 really couldn't have helped him unless he had 7-6. Did he have... He didn't call a 3-bet with 8-5. Do you pocket 6s and happen to hit a set? Probably not. Hopefully I fold here. I believe that's the correct play, and I do. So, yeah, maybe that's a scenario where I shouldn't be firing that second barrel once he calls. It's easy enough to put him on a king. A king's not going to fold. The spade draw is not going to fold. There are some draw combos that call you that are behind that can get there, and all the kings are going to call you, or in an unfortunate situation like this, he raised. So, all right, this is why we study. Ace-9 offsuit in the big blind. So I'm assuming here I call. In a lot of situations, I'm fine. It's a fine hand to play from the big blind. It's a fairly tight player. Again, 52 hands though, but he's only open raising 4% of hands. In the cutoff, I mean, it's his first open raise from the cutoff, so he's probably got a pretty tight range there that ace-9 doesn't do great against. But you're going to pot odds. You need to be right 31% of the time, and you certainly have that. All right, call. So here you hit a top pair. So you got to figure out how you want to respond here. His range is so tight that he has all the aces to 10s in there. Sometimes on these boards, especially if they're kind of middle card boards, it's worth throwing in a check raise against someone that you think is going to c-bet too often. He hasn't c-bet us yet in, well, a single opportunity. Probably it's an unfortunate thing. You got to see what he does and just call down. So we check. He fires less than a third pot. So again, you have the opportunity to check raise here with top pair, top kicker, just based on how condensed we think his range is. He's a lot of overpairs here. I think you're better off just calling and seeing what develops, which I do. All right. Now that's a pretty good turn for you. I'm going to check every turn. I don't want to illustrate that we have an ace here. So we check that. Now he bets 50 cents. Now he sizes up. So what do you lose to here? You lose to pocket aces. That's it. There's one combination of pocket aces that you have. You lose to 7s, 5s, and the one pairs of pocket 9s. I will say there are other sets out there you're behind to, but you beat all the 2-pair combos. You beat all the ace-king, all the ace-queen, ace-jack. Do they fold to a check raise? They probably don't. These sets may 3-bet you, so you can just get out of the way if you do happen to get 3-bet. So I like a check raise here. Probably pots 155, calls $2. Or probably something about 225 is a good amount. All right. So I like the play. I just think that was too small to accomplish anything. If we're trying to fold a better hand out, he's not folding for that. We're certainly getting worse hands to call for that price, but I think something like an ace-king or an ace-queen that you're certainly well ahead of would call a bigger bet. So I'd probably like going to something like 225, so I think that was a sizing error here on my part. And he jams. Does he ever do this with anything that's not a set or better? You beat all the 2-pair combos. Does he do this with ace-king? Maybe. Does he do this with ace-queen, ace-jack? Less likely. There's only so many sets out there for him to have. There's one combination of aces. There's 3 of 9s. 3 of... One combination of 9s, 3 of aces. 3 of 7s, 3 of 5s. So there's 10 combinations of sets versus all those ace-king hands. 8 combinations of ace king, 8 combinations of ace queen, so right there you're ahead. I think this is a call against this player level. These guys are just happy to hit top pair and get it in. So he's 55 cents behind. Hopefully I just raised to include that, which I do. He's going to call off, and what happens? All right. So that was one of the hands where he had us set. That was one of the 10 combos that beat you. So I don't know once he hit 2 pairs that you can do much there differently. So we can note here on turn, 3-bet, flopped, set. Well, all right. So now we know. Even if we had called that and if we put him only on sets, that'd be one thing. But I do think he might do that with something like an ace-king hand. He'd certainly fire the flop. He would certainly fire again here on the turn once he gets that. It's hard to get away from this. It's hard to get away from 2 pair and a player that is likely to call down too light. King Jack offsuit on button, limp, raise. Again, it's one of these things that are not a full raise, so it's not particularly scary to me. You don't want to call behind in this situation with the King Jack offsuit. I think this is either a 3-bet or fold spot. If I 3-bet, I want to make it 90 plus that, so probably $1. Assuming I flag the hand, I'm assuming I 3-bet, which I like, $1.10. Even a little larger just to try to get some folds is fine. Really, this is the hand you want to play heads up. You don't want this to go multi-way, so going a little bit bigger is not really a problem. And the initial raiser 4-bets. Now he 4-bets about 2.3x your raise, which is an appropriate 4-bet amount. You're not supposed to 4-bet like a full 3x. So what do we do here? Probably this is a fold. He's going to have... It's his first 4-bet again. I think it's a guy we looked at earlier in 16 opportunities, so he's not doing it lightly. If he has some ace-high bluffs in there, I mean, you're still behind those. You're behind all the pairs. You're behind even something as simple as King-Jack suited, the 2 suited combos of it. So this is probably a fold just because you're not going to love where you are on the flop. Even if you hit a king, you can't be confident that you have that. If you hit like a queen 10, at least you have an open and a straight draw, but I don't think you have the stack depth to try to get in with that. So this is probably a fold. It's tough because you only need 27% equity to continue in position, which you probably have with the King Jack. So I can understand the call, but I don't like it. I think there's too many flops that you're going to miss and just end up folding out all your equity. All right. So what happened here? So he checks the flop and we bet. So we're clearly betting to represent an ace at this point. So does that mean if he 4-bets, that does he have kings, queens, jacks? I mean, you're blocking kings, you're blocking jacks, so you could put him on queens. Queens are not going to fold to a 3rd pot bet, though. So if you're trying to represent a decent ace here, you just didn't bet enough to get anything to fold, would be my opinion. So probably if I was going to make that same bet, I want to go to 350 or something like that to really put pressure on his underpairs to the ace. So now that you've hit a king, you have showdown value. It's hard for him to have pocket kings. There's only one combo out there now. If he had queens or something, though, he's not going to bet here. That looks even scarier to him. So I imagine he checks. So now he bets into us. You have to fold. You have to fold. I'm not even sure how to range this guy or how to play him. He had to have an ace. He's not going to fire this bet with the king unless he had pocket kings and just happened to boat up. I'm sorry, hit a set. Yeah, have to fold. So really, this is one of the scenarios where we probably our 4-bet, our call of the 4-bet pre-flop was too loose. We should have just folded out and saved ourselves a lot of money. So definitely, as you move up to like a 10 NL, you'll see more kind of 4-bet spots, and definitely that's something that we got to polish up here in this case. We're in low jack, king 9 suited at raise, small blind calls, big blind folds. It looks like these are all from the same table. That's the same player as the last hand, all right? So 10-10-2. It's a guy that likes to call a continuation bet. He's only folding 29% of the time, which is real low. So against that type of player, though, you're going to want to do a heavy amount of value betting and probably check behind a whole lot more on flops that are not great for you. So as a pre-flop raiser, I mean, you can represent all the overpairs. We could see who has more tens by comparing the ranges. I mean, there's only 2 tens out there. You're not blocking diamonds. He would call behind with that. It's hard for either of us to have a 10. You have the overpairs. He probably doesn't. So again, it's a spot where you have the advantage and can bet 25%. I'm sorry, about 25 cents a third pot. I don't mind the check behind. He's a guy that's not going to fold a whole lot. I actually like that play quite a bit. And now that he leads the turn, what do you do? So in general, this guy's not doing a whole lot of betting. I mean, he's only betting the flop 45% of the time, continuation betting the turn, I should say, 25% of the time. He's not a guy that's firing multi-barrel, so I think it's a pretty easy fold. You don't have a backdoor draw. You have a single overcard. Yeah, that's a poor play. Got to fold that. And now you finally get to the river and the king is out there. So no draw completes. If you had a 10, you're behind. If he had a king, queen, king, jack, it's unfortunate. King 10. I think you have to call down if he makes any reasonably sized bet here. He overbets the pot. So this is something I've tried to go through my database and look through lately. I think I call too liberally in these spots. The way he's played this, he can have a 10. He was certainly checked to the pre-flop raiser on the flop. Once it checks through, it makes sense for him to bet turn. It would also make sense for him to fire a large bet on the river, considering the king connect with an ace-king or something, though, and it's hard for me to... If I had ace-king, it'd be hard for me to fold that. I think with king 9, I should fold this. And I call, and I think we're going to be showing a 10 here too much of the time. Yep. Well, at least after the fact, we read the hand correctly. Really, going back here, the flop play was relatively standard. You probably should have just folded to the turn. That was not a good turn float because you only had one overcard and a backdoor draw. So that's the mistake we made here. And hey, guys, this is why you do the analysis. You got to learn from your own mistakes. A7 suited. Raise that up from hijack. Big blind call. So it's a different player there. It's a 55, 45, and 11 hands. So again, loose, aggressive, not much you can tell in 11 hands. Well, that's a good flop. 2 pair. Pretty, with the ace and the queen, it's going to be pretty action-oriented board. With the flush draw out there, there's certainly combos there you want to try to get value from. A check. I probably size up here a little bit just because if he has an ace, he'll call a larger bet. If he has clubs, these guys tend to overcall. So hopefully I go a little bit bigger to like 35 or to 40. I go 30, a little small, but at least it wasn't a third pot. I'd like to see it up at 40 just because I think you get called there. He calls down the 2. Not scared of the 2. That doesn't help either of us. He doesn't. He could have ace 2, but you're still beating. He doesn't have queen 2, so he shouldn't have 7 2. So again, if he checks to us, I think you got to fire another bet. Now that he's shown interest in the pot, I actually like to size up a little bit. I might go 2/3, like 85 or 90 cents. I like a bigger bet here. 80 again. I think I could have gone a little bigger and gotten value. That's okay. So he does call. And now we get to a river where he pairs the queen. So does he check or does he lead? He leads $2. So your 2 pair is counterfeited. So now you have aces and queens with essentially a 7 kicker. There's a reasonable number of hands that he has that may chop. You don't know based on 11 hands what his range is going to be, whether it's going to be only a queen or something else. You would lose to a better ace. You would lose to ace 8 or better because he has you outkicked. Probably a fold spot. Unfortunate. I do call. What are we shown? Well, from a textbook perspective, when he got to the river, the board paired a card that he would likely call down on. He is a busted draw, so he had a real strong draw on the flop. I'm actually surprised with something like that where you have a gut shot and backdoor clubs that he didn't check raise. It'd be a pretty good check raise spot. Probably wasn't a terrible bluff spot on his part. Once the board paired and the draws missed, I mean, he couldn't win at showdown with jack highs. Take a shot at it. So it's probably actually not a bad bluff spot. And this is, I think this is hand 8, so the last one for this part of the video. We had 9-8 offsuit in the big blind. I'm assuming there was a cheap raise somewhere in front of me and we got it that way. 20 cents from a 59-28 player, so a real loose guy. When I see those numbers, it leads me to believe they're likely to pay us off if we hit something big, but that's not always the case. Fold, call. So here getting 5.5 to 1, you need 15% equity. I think it's a pretty easy call from the big blind. Here you hit a weak top pair. You hit a 9 with an 8 kicker. You have some backdoor flush possibility, but it would just be an 8 high, so that's not great. We're going to check here 100% of the time. He bets nearly pot. So here... So this villain here is going to be weaker than this villain. If this guy bets with the player behind him, that's one thing. But once it checks through and he's the last guy to act, he's going to bet with weaker hands. So does he ever bet it with a hand that you beat? Does he bet with a 9-7, a 9-6, a 9-5, 9-4? Maybe. Does he do this with a club draw? You're blocking that partially, but all the ace-high club draws are still available, so certainly possible. There's going to be so many bad cards on the turn for you. A 10, a jack, a queen, a king, an ace, none of which are particularly good. The only thing that are great for you is a 9 or an 8. This is probably just a fold spot here, and if he's trying to sneak one in position, good for him. So I call there, and he folds. So again, I must have interpreted this guy's kind of betting range here as weak. Let's see what can happen. So now the board pairs the 3, and the flush draw comes in. So who is that better for? Well, he's playing a wide range of hands. It should be better for me, meaning I have more combinations of 3s in my big blind calling range than he does on a button flatting range. I have all or most of these flush combinations here. You would play, 8-7, 8-6, 8-5, 8-4, 10-8, jack-8, queen-8. You would play all those hands in the big blind where he shouldn't be playing those from the button. It's probably better for me. So between the 3 being better for my range, the flush draw being better for my range, is probably a spot where I either want to lead, which I don't do a whole lot of, or check raise kind of big. So what do we do here? We check. He fires 90. What I'd like to say here is raise to something like 350, a decent sized check raise. So it's 275 plus 90 is 365. Even $4. Raise something big. I call there, and I don't like that. I just think it's a good spot to apply pressure based on how that hits my range compared to his. And now the board has double paired. Again, it's not likely he has a 3 or a 2. It probably would be another decent lead spot. I don't do a lot of leading. Yeah, so we had a king 9. So when it checked him on the flop, he had top pair second kicker. He decided to bet that into the 2 players, which is reasonable on his part. Should have gone smaller because he was only getting called by good hands. Probably if I had check raised that turn and check raised it pretty big, I mean, I don't know the specific player, but he probably could have gotten some fold equity there once the flush draw came in and the board paired. If I didn't get it then, I probably would have got on the river once the board double paired. So unfortunate. I got to look for more spots like that to apply aggression. I probably got a little call happy there and it cost me. So thanks for listening, guys. This is the first half of the video. I'll put a link below to the second half. Certainly hit subscribe if you want to see some more videos like this. Good luck, everyone. Let me know how you're doing in your games.